It's Tuesday, May 5th, 2026, and right now, as you are watching this, the Strait of Hormuz is no longer a standoff. It is an active combat zone. Iran fired on us Navy ships yesterday. Drones filled the sky over the way. An oil port in Fujairah is still burning. And 6 Iranian fast attack boats are sitting at the bottom of the strait. This is not a ceasefire anymore. This is something else entirely. So let's break down exactly what happened. What is confirmed? What is Iranian propaganda? And what the events of May 4th, 2026 actually mean for where this conflict goes in the next 30 days. Because if you have been following this conflict through 30-second clips and headline alerts, you have missed the most important details. And those details are exactly what we are here for. To understand what happened yesterday, you need to understand what Sunday night set in motion. President Trump took to social media late Sunday, May 3rd, and announced something called Project Freedom. He said the United States would begin guiding stranded commercial vessels out of the Strait of Hormuz starting Monday morning. And then he added 7 words that Iran heard loud and clear. Any interference, he said, would have to be dealt with forcefully, not suggested, not requested. Dealt with forcefully. U.S. Central Command confirmed the force package backing that mission within hours. More than 100 aircraft, several guided missile destroyers, 15,000 troops, and 2 full carrier strike groups, the USS Abraham Lincoln and the USS George W. Bush, positioned together in the Arabian Sea for the first time since this conflict began. 2 nuclear-powered carrier strike groups operating in tandem. That is the most concentrated American naval firepower in this region since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. Now think about what that announcement meant to Tehran. The strait has been effectively closed since February 28th, when Operation Epic Fury launched, and Iran responded by locking the world's most critical energy choke point. Roughly 20 million barrels of oil per day, 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas, up to 30% of globally traded fertilizers. All of it blocked. Iran put a padlock on the world's energy supply and dared anyone to remove it. Project Freedom was the United States walking up to that padlock with bolt cutters and a carrier strike group. Iran's response came fast, and it came with missiles. Iran's semi-official Fars news agency was first out of the gate. They reported that 2 missiles had been fired at a Navy vessel after it attempted to pass through the strait. Fars claimed the vessel ignored warnings from the naval forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And then they went further. Fars reported the warship was hit, that it was unable to continue its course, that it was forced to retreat and flee. Iranian state television ran the story on loop. Outlets picked it up globally. And for roughly 45 minutes, the story that a Navy warship had been struck and forced to retreat was spreading across every platform faster than anyone could verify it. Here is where we separate the facts from the theater. U.S. Central Command issued a statement that was short, sharp, and left zero room for interpretation. No US Navy ships have been struck. US forces are supporting Project Freedom and enforcing the naval blockade on Iranian ports. Full stop. No warship damaged. No retreat. No mission abort. And before the Iranian propaganda machine had even finished its first press cycle, FA-18 Super Hornets were already lifting off the flight deck of the Abraham Lincoln. Now, some of you are going to say, well, the US military would deny it regardless. Fair point. So let's talk about Iran's track record, because this is not the first time. On March 1st, Iran claimed its ballistic missiles had struck the USS Abraham Lincoln directly. CENTCOM called it a flat-out lie. The missiles did not come close. This pattern fire, claim a kill is not incompetence. It is a calculated psychological operation running on 3 tracks simultaneously. Track 1 is domestic. The average person on the streets of Tehran is not reading CENTCOM press releases. They are watching state television, reading Fars news, listening to commentary telling them their military is winning. The regime that replaced Supreme Leader Khamenei, killed in the February 28th strikes, is operating on borrowed legitimacy. When you lose your supreme leader to a foreign airstrike, you either negotiate from weakness or you perform strength so aggressively that your own population forgets to ask uncomfortable questions. Iran chose option 2. Track 2 is European. Governments in London, Paris, and Berlin have been quietly uncomfortable with the US approach to this conflict from day one. Iran knows that if it can create enough narrative ambiguity, if it can make European audiences believe the Americans are taking casualties, bleeding in the strait, political pressure builds on Washington from its own allies to pull back. The false missile strike claim yesterday was textbook execution of that strategy. Track 3 is the global shipping industry. Iran does not need to sink us destroyer to win the information battle. They just need shipping company boardrooms and insurance underwriters to believe the corridor is too dangerous. Because the shipping industry answers to actuaries, not to CENTCOM. If enough tanker operators decide the risk premium is too high, Project Freedom succeeds militarily but fails commercially. That is a win for Iran without a single ballistic missile finding its target. Now let's talk about what Iran actually did yesterday that is completely confirmed and completely significant. U.S. military confirmed that Iran launched multiple cruise missiles, drones, and small fast attack boats at us Navy ships and commercial vessels operating under Project Freedom's protection. 6 small Iranian boats were destroyed, engaged, and eliminated by us Army Apache helicopters and Navy 60 Seahawk helicopters operating in the Strait. Let that sink in for a moment. The ERG sent fast attack craft small, fast, aggressive, designed for harassment and swarm tactics in confined waterways. The answer that came back was a 64 Apache gunships, the same helicopter system that has been a decisive weapon from the Gulf War through Afghanistan. The ERG sent speedboats. The US sent Apaches. That is not an exchange of equals. That is a very expensive lesson in the difference between harassment tactics and actual combat power. And then Iran did something that revealed more about its desperation than any missile launch could. The way a Gulf Arab nation, a country that has historically maintained at least a working relationship with Tehran, a country that is not the United States, not Israel, not a declared enemy, the way reported that Iran fired 19 missiles and drones at its territory. Way air defenses intercepted 15 of them. A drone broke through and ignited a fire at an oil port in the Fujairah region. And separately, an Abu Dhabi National Oil Company tanker was struck by Iranian drones as it navigated the strait. That is a state-owned energy company belonging to one of America's closest Gulf partners. Attacked by Iran. On the same day, Iran was engaging us Navy assets. This is not the behavior of a regime executing a disciplined strategic plan. This is the behavior of a regime lashing out under pressure, hitting anyone and anything moving through waters it claims to control regardless of the diplomatic consequences. And those consequences are real and they are immediate. Here is something that the headline coverage completely missed yesterday. When Iran launched those missiles and drones at us Navy ships, they were not just entering a combat zone. They were entering one of the most sophisticated integrated kill chains ever assembled in the history of naval warfare. Start with the 18G Growler. Remember this aircraft. The Growler is the electronic warfare version of the Super Hornet. Its entire mission is to enter the electromagnetic spectrum and dominate it, jamming enemy radar, spoofing missile guidance systems, geolocating every radar that activates within range. The moment Iran turned on targeting radar for those cruise missiles, any 18G Growler was almost certainly already airborne, cataloging the emission, building a targeting solution, and feeding that data into the kill chain in real time. That is doctrine. That is exactly what that aircraft was designed to do. Layer on top of that the E-D Advanced Hawkeye, the Navy's airborne early warning aircraft, essentially a flying radar station with a rotodome that pushes coverage out beyond 400 miles. By the time an Iranian missile cleared the ridgeline near Jask, the E-D had already been tracking the launch sequence for minutes. The threat was known before it fully materialized, and then there is the Aegis combat system on the Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyers. This is the network that ties everything together. It can simultaneously track over 100 targets, correlate data across multiple platforms, and compute intercept solutions in real time. The SM-6 missiles it fires have a range exceeding 130 nautical miles and can intercept ballistic missiles in their terminal phase. When Iran fires a salvo, their preferred method, trying to overwhelm defenses from multiple vectors, the Aegis system does not see chaos. It sees a math problem, and it solves it. CENTCOM Admiral Brad Cooper described it directly. The US has a much broader defensive package than simple one-on-one escort. Multiple layers, each one independent, each one lethal. You have to defeat all of them simultaneously to get through. Iran could not do it yesterday. Not even close. Underneath all of the missile claims and the propaganda cycle, 2 things happened on May 4th that Iran absolutely did not want the world to see. The first, 2 US-flagged merchant vessels successfully transited the Strait of Hormuz. That is the headline that cuts through everything else. Iran fired missiles. Iran launched drones. Iran sent fast attack boats that got blown out of the water by Apaches. And after all of that, after everything they threw at Project Freedom on day one, 2 American merchant ships still made it through. Iran's immediate response was to deny it ever happened. The URG called it baseless and outright lies. Because if their own population, if European governments, if the global shipping industry finds out that the Americans walked ships through the strait on the very first day of the mission despite missiles, despite drones, despite fast attack boats, Iran's entire narrative of control and deterrence collapses in a single news cycle. The second thing Iran did not want you to see: Trump's public statement after the engagement. He warned that Iranian forces would be blown off the face of the earth if they attempted to target us ships in the Strait or the Persian Gulf. That is not campaign rhetoric. That is a targeting authority statement made in public. And the rules of engagement for us forces in the region have already been changed to allow strikes on immediate threats against ships crossing the strait, including Iranian coastal missile batteries preemptively. Read that again, preemptively. That is a fundamentally different posture than 2 months ago when us warships were deliberately staying out of the strait entirely. Yesterday, the US walked into the kill box, blew up 6 Iranian boats, escorted 2 merchant ships out the other side, and Trump went on Fox News and told Iran what happens next time they try it. Let's talk about Iran's remaining options, because despite everything that went wrong for Tehran yesterday, they are not out of moves. Option 1, intensify the swarm. The URG has hundreds of fast attack craft and significantly more smaller speedboats that can be hidden near the water and deployed rapidly. Yesterday's 6 destroyed boats are a rounding error against that inventory. Iran could dramatically increase the frequency and density of swarm operations, not to sink us destroyer, but to make the corridor so chaotic that commercial shipping companies refuse to send vessels through, regardless of us military presence. Option 2, expand the Gulf War. Yesterday's way attack was not random. It was a message to every Gulf Cooperation Council member watching this conflict: Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, that proximity to American operations makes you a target. If Iran begins systematically targeting Gulf state energy infrastructure, the economic and political pressure on Washington to negotiate a resolution becomes enormous. Option 3, the mine threat. And this is the one that serious analysts lose sleep over. US military intelligence confirmed Iran has been planting naval mines in the strait since March. The US has destroyed 16 Iranian mine-laying vessels. But 16 mine layers destroyed does not mean 0 mines in the water. A single mine strike on a commercial tanker transiting the US protected corridor would be catastrophic, not just physically, psychologically. It would signal that the US military cannot guarantee safe passage even with 15,000 service members and 100 aircraft overhead. This is not purely a military confrontation, and anyone telling you it is not giving you the complete picture. Iran's foreign minister posted on Monday that talks were making progress through Pakistan's mediation. He called Project Freedom Project Deadlock and warned the US against being dragged into a quagmire. At the same time, Iran's Ministry of Foreign Affairs confirmed Tehran was reviewing the latest text from Washington relayed through Islamabad. Both sides are firing missiles and simultaneously negotiating through the same back channel. That back channel matters enormously. It means that despite everything that happened yesterday, the missiles, the Apache strikes, the burning oil port in Fujairah, neither side has completely closed the door on a negotiated resolution. Trump's language, however, does not suggest someone looking for a quick off-ramp. He said Iran had not paid a big enough price for what they have done over the last 47 years. That is not the language of a president seeking an exit. That is a president who believes maximum pressure is working and intends to keep applying it until the terms shift decisively in Washington's favor and reinforcing that posture. A third aircraft carrier with thousands of Marines and paratroopers is en route to the region. When it arrives, the US will have its largest military presence in the Middle East since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. At some point, that presence exists not just to deter, it exists to execute. So here is where we stand tonight. May 5th, 2006, Iran fired missiles at US Navy ships in the Strait of Hormuz. The ships were not hit. Iran said they were. 6 Iranian fast attack boats are at the bottom of the strait. 2 US merchant ships made it through on day 1 of Project Freedom. The way intercepted 19 Iranian missiles and drones. An oil port in Fujairah is still burning. Oil hit $4.46 a gallon and is climbing. A third US carrier is on its way. And Trump told Iran on national television exactly what happens if they try it again. The question I want to leave you with, and I genuinely want your answer in the comments, is this. Iran just tested Project Freedom on day 1 and failed to stop it. So what does day 2 look like? Do they go bigger? Do they activate the mine threat? Do they take the diplomatic off-ramp that Pakistan is quietly building for them? Or does the way attack signal that Iran has already lost control of its own escalation strategy? Drop your answer below. I read every single comment, and this conversation matters. If this breakdown gave you something the mainstream coverage did not, hit subscribe. This channel covers exactly this depth every single day. Share this with one person who has been following this conflict through headlines alone. They are missing the full picture, and the full picture is right here.